everyone, and welcome. Welcome to the Lit Gals. We are so happy that everybody is here joining us today in one of our most favorite topics, that is for sure. First of all, my name is Anna Cook. I am a professional literacy specialist, just spreading the word across Indiana and other states around nearby. So happy to be here. Morgan, please introduce yourself as well.
Hi, so excited to be here. I'm Morgan Mason. I am a professional learning specialist here at Keep Indiana Learning, and my heart belongs to the early learners.
Mm-hmm. And I'm Marty Hoofer, the digital content manager here at Keep Indiana Learning. And before I came here, I taught middle schoolers, which are a lot different than your early learners, Morgan. And in some ways, man, there's a whole lot of similarities.
Yeah.
So, which fits well with our topic today. In honor of World Read Aloud Day and Read Across America Day, we are going to talk about two different kinds of read alouds. And as we talk about these two kinds of read alouds, we'll talk about the importance of read alouds and what our opinions are about them. I have a stack in front of me of my students' favorite read alouds because I was a big proponent of reading aloud for different purposes in my 7th grade classroom. It brings a lot to the table that just plopping a text in front of kids doesn't bring. So Anna, let's kick us off. What are your thoughts on
Let's talk.
Yeah, what are the different kinds and what are their purposes?
So, when we all first started out, read alouds was that time, either right at the very beginning of the school day or right after we had recess, and the kids kind of just sat back and passively listened. And that's great. I'm not knocking that at all, right? But especially since COVID, we have really tried to push hard that interactive read aloud. And by an interactive read aloud, I'm talking about really honing in on a strategy or a standard that we're really wanting the students to learn and grasp a hold of. So right after that mini lesson, to follow it up with an interactive read aloud. So we're going to talk about both today, okay? But first, I would be remiss, you guys, not to mention my very, very first read aloud that I read to my kids 30 plus years ago, 35 plus years ago. Don't even go there, you guys. But it was Chicka, Chicka, Boom, Boom. And I read it to my first grade students. And to this day, all of the grandbabies have this book, and also the great nieces and nephews. I just want to read one page because I really get into this book. Chicka, Chicka, Boom, Boom. A told B and B told C, I'll meet you at the top of the coconut tree. A, B, C. So Chicka, Chicka, Boom, Boom. I love this book. It's all tattered and everything. It's a cardboard book, but boy, oh boy, it's a keeper.
It is such a classic. As soon as you said that about the grandbabies all having a copy, I think I got maybe 3 copies at my own baby shower of that book. Yeah, and we kept every single one because we will use it.
Yeah. Won't you though?
Yeah. Gosh, it was hard for me to pick one because I feel like there are so many books that, especially as a teacher and now as a mom, that I am using as read alouds. But one of my favorite read alouds, just for the leisurely, sit back, relax, close your eyes, imagine what's happening in the story. As a first grade teacher, one of my favorite books was The Snowy Day by Ezra Jack Keats. I love that book.
Love that book.
Yes. It's just, it's one of the classics for me. It's one of my favorites. And I always thought it was so fun I always started by the first time I would read it to my class, I wouldn't show them the pictures because I think that there were so many opportunities for them to just close their eyes and sit back and imagine what the snowy day looks like for you. And then when we would read it a second time or a third time, we would look at the illustrations. But such a good one.
Isn't that wonderful? And, Morgan, kudos to you for spending the time. So many times we know as an educator, we should be doing read aloud, and then we rush through it. And then we're dismayed when they, you know what I mean?
Right.
So thank you so much for just taking your time and reading it.
Yeah, it was one of my favorite parts of the day.
Yeah.
Yes. And so, Morgan, I'm so glad as we make connections here with books. I love that book from a personal standpoint. So my son is in his early 20s and is African American. My husband and I adopted him when he was 4 days old. And as we bring him home, I realized, oh my son is not represented in the books on the shelves from my daughter. I have to do something about that. And so the very first book I bought for my son was Ezra Jack Keats' The Snowy Day.
Oh,
and
I love that.
Immediately fell in love. I could go pick the book up off of Sam's shelf today.
And it's probably tattered too.
It is. Oh, very well loved. And, then that just opened my eyes to, there's so many other books that I just didn't know. And so I love that story just from that personal connection. But so as a middle school teacher, Anna, I feel in my bones that need of, we have 50 minutes, 47 actually in reality most of the time in my school. I got to redeem every single one of them. But I wasn't going to rush through that read aloud. And like you said, Morgan, it was my favorite part of the day. And sometimes when I taught reading all day long, I read the same book, the same chapter 6 times out loud, and I never tired of it because of what it does to kiddos. You can just see them relax. And so my tip was when I would just take the book with me. This one I use. Actually, my personal copy of this is so tattered because it got used so many times. This is a library copy. But I would just take it out in the hall with me to do hall duty. The bell would ring. I would walk in, close the door, and I would just start reading. A blue road sign said, "The Grand Canyon State welcomes you as we cross the border from New Mexico." And you know what? It didn't take them but seconds to get quiet because they wanted to hear the story. And so my read alouds for that part of my day, for those first somewhere, I don't know, 5-7 minutes, were just enjoyment. Just sit back and relax. And maybe we would comment on it, maybe not. Maybe I'd just close the book and then we'd start our day. So these are 2 of my students' favorites. Code of Honor by Alan Gratz. Used it repeatedly. It's great. Probably 7th grade is about as young as I would use it. It's got some pretty intense scenes in it about a soldier in Iraq. But the chapters are super short, which is a key for middle school read alouds. Super short chapters. And man, the kids are just sucked in. But another one, this one from the desk of Zoe Washington. It's fantastic. It has a little bit longer chapters, but it has a lot of section breaks. So I would use those to my advantage. And this one brings up some current events and some civil rights issues, which is fun for the kids then to think about. But also there's a parent in prison in this story, and I'm not telling you anything, it's not on the back cover, but so kids could relate to that, some of my students. And so this was a very much of a favorite toward the end of my teaching career. So yeah, there is a place, and those 7 minutes, they're precious.
And they are, Marty and Morgan. And I want to just bring something up that has been very heavy for me. I just feel as though in middle school and high school, our teachers are like, I've got 47 minutes. I do not have time to waste on a read aloud.
Yeah.
But a couple of things have kind of bubbled up in conversations that I've had with other teachers. And that is, since COVID, our students have not been read to very much. We thought they would be, but they didn't. They weren't. And once again, it kind of falls back on that teacher, and just 7 minutes, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, for them to hear good reading, and then also to have those imaginative ideas about what they are hearing and what that might look like or be like. our students need that. They do. So when I was principal of a school, a small community, 7 through 12, I did a lot of read alouds. I always had a book on me. And just like you had said, Marty, there were times, I mean, inevitably, please come into our room. Please come to our room and read. Yeah. They want to hear that. Yes. They do. I don't care what grade.
Yeah.
And they should. Yeah. And it's lacking.
Well, okay, let's be honest. Before we switch to the interactive part, we all enjoy audiobooks. We all enjoy podcasts. So we're still being read to as adults.
Yeah. So point.
There is absolutely a place for a read aloud in a classroom. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and Marty, you know, do you remember the 2 years ago, a year ago, when I knew that I wasn't going to have that time to sit there and read the actual, hard book. I did a lot on books on tape. Yeah. And it at least it kept me in the loop, and once again, listening to some good reading.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So Anna, talk to us. What are your thoughts on Well, first, Anna, why don't you define an interactive read aloud, and then we'll kind of take the same pattern again.
Yeah. So once again, we're all pressed for time. And although we have just sat there and said, we need to have that time that they can just sit back and relax, even if it's 5 or 7 minutes. A lot of, educators out there now are just saying, I still do not have 5 to 7 minutes. So the interactive read aloud has really come to fruition, if you will, that not only gets in that opportunity for a read aloud, but also gives us that opportunity for an additional punch, if you will, on a strategy that we wanted to teach, or a standard. So I am a very big proponent, and I've gone across the Midwest really talking about that interactive read aloud. And so what I mean by an interactive read aloud is, let's just say that we have done a mini lesson on inferencing, and the students, know the definition of inferencing. We might have shown them a couple of different inferencings, but then we take the read aloud, and we actually say, now is our time. Mrs. Cook is going to talk about, why the day the Crayons Quit. And we are going to look for different times of, that the author really does use inferencing. Okay. And so that interactive read aloud is just that. The students have got to focus.
Yeah.
They've got a reason to listen. Okay. And in this case, it was inferencing. Well, this is probably the better one. A bad case of stripes. This is a great for inferencing. Okay. But for elementary, and you know what, even middle school, the day the Crayons Quit would have been fabulous for letter writing. Mm-hmm. They could look at these letters and really dissect the different components that Mrs. Cook talked about that letters need, right?
Yes. Well, and also I've used that book in a middle school classroom where you can talk about tone and mood, and theme. All of those work with
and writing persuasive arguments. I mean, there's a whole list.
So yes. So, and I'm glad, Morgan and Marty, that you mentioned that. It's okay. Use this book. Keep using it, because the more that they hear it and the more that we use it, the easier it is, or the more calm they get about, oh yeah, we know about this story. Oh yeah, there is inferencing or mood or whatever, right?
Absolutely.
So yeah, use books over and over and over again if you can, on different strategies or standards. So for the elementary, Thank you very much, Marty and Morgan. This book is unreal. I mean, it's chock full of different standards that need to be met, strategies, right?
Yeah.
And then for the inferencing, once again, A Bad Case of Stripes. Love this book for that. But that really is what I'm talking about, an interactive read aloud. The students have got to focus, right? It's not just sit back and relax and, conjure up ideas in our mind. We've got to focus. We've got to do work as well.
Yeah.
I guess that's what interactive read alouds are for me and my students. We've all got work to do with a book, right?
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the perfect segue into an author that I love so much, and I used his books so much as interactive read alouds in my classroom. Mo Willems. I could go on and on. He has the Elephant and Piggy series. He has the Pigeon series. He has the Knuffle Bunny books that my toddler is obsessed with. So that is one that I used. He is an author that I used all the time in specifically in my first grade classroom, but I read those books a lot now too. But I love, not only could I teach story elements and things like that, but I also loved the opportunity to embed some of those other things like friendship and responsibility and some of those other traits that are embedded in those books that I feel like are so important for our little learners to be exposed to and to see. I remember specifically the Elephant and Piggy books. There is so much going on in the illustrations with the dialogue. Like they have the little speech bubbles, and that's where the majority of the text takes place. And I loved that because that was it was different than what a lot of my students were used to seeing in books. And we would do that, and then we would actually write our own books, and we would create some illustrations and create those speech bubbles. And it was a fun way to teach them about a different style of being able to portray your thoughts in a book.
And Morgan, I'm so glad that you should mention that speech bubbles, things like that. That is considered a complex text.
Yes.
And our kids need to be aware. This is what it looks like. This is how we're going to attack it. This is how it ties into the story. So kudos to you for doing this in first grade, right?
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, it's
kudos
fun.
Kudos to you.
And I have to mention one other thing, because I think that it's so important, and we talked about this a little bit before we came on here, just the importance of modeling good reading and good read alouds for our students. And I'm experiencing that firsthand as a mom to a toddler right now. So especially with the Elephant and Piggy books, you have to have a different voice for elephant than you do for piggy. And so I've been doing that as I read these books to him, and he has picked up on that. And so he was playing in the bath the other night with two different characters, and he was talking in one voice with one character and then talking in a different voice with the other character. And I was like, he's figuring it out. He knows that they're two different characters and that they sound different. So just
how old, Morgan? How
2.
old?
2 years old.
2.
Yes.
2.
Yeah.
And, never too early.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge part of why we do read alouds, is all the things we can model while we're reading, whether they're just reading and relaxing, or like I loved what you said, Anna, that we're all working, not just me as the reader, you as the consumer are also working here as an interactive read aloud. That there's so much learning going on all the time throughout the process. I love that.
Yeah. So what was yours, Marty?
So I actually thought of a third one while you were talking, Anna. It's a short story. Langston Hughes, Thank You, Ma'am. We read it very early every year in my reading class. And I bet we talked about it all year long, because the more we talked about it, and we would maybe read it again once or twice, but because it was in the kids' brain, we could talk about it and use examples from it without pulling the text back out, which was amazing. So that's one that, we just talked about over and over. But the two books I have that I used in a middle school classroom as interactive read alouds, this one, My copy of it still has my Post-it notes. It actually still has one of the assignments I used out of it, paper clipped right here inside it.
Love that.
I'll never get rid of that piece of paper. But
No, good management strategy.
yeah, because then it's right there. I don't have to go looking for it. But so I would often use picture books as interactive read aloud in a middle school classroom because we can read the whole text and still have a lesson. Where with thank you, ma'am, that's a whole period shot just in get the text read. Here I can do both at the same time. And so different, Post-it notes for different things I wanted to teach out of it. But so Freedom Summer, this was used often in my classroom. And this one, actually, ironically, I didn't realize this, how nicely these two books go together, especially for Black History Month. This is like the 1950s living Jim Crow version. And then this is the early 2000s looking back at what it was like to live Jim Crow. So I've got a whole unit put together right here.
Good job.
But this one, I didn't know this was going to become an interactive read aloud when I started. I picked it because I really like Nick Stone, great author. This was one of her first middle grade books. She does a lot of YA stuff, but this was one of her first middle grade ones. And as I started reading it to the kids, I realized there were things about American history that they didn't know that they needed to know to understand this book. So I started teaching American history, Jim Crow laws, and all the various tenets of that as we read this book, because I can't talk about a green book and traveling through the South as an African American if my kids don't know what a green book is.
Right.
So this became
teachable moment.
Yeah, this became an interactive read aloud, more about U.S. history, because I really didn't use it as a language arts text. It was still in my 7 minutes of just enjoyment, but I had to teach for them to understand the story.
Yeah. Wonderful.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So like I said, I didn't realize I had a unit put together until I just put them together. Looky there. That's not how that works. So what a great conversation with World Read Aloud Day and Read Across America Day coming in March. Here we are right in the middle of the two of those. So many good read alouds out there for so many purposes. Yeah. So let's end as we always do. What are you currently reading, Anna?
Well, I'm currently reading a wonderful book by Lawrence Freeman. He is a monk that lives in France, and this is called Good Work. Meditation for personal and organizational transformation. And so he really does delve into what are we doing and why are we doing it? So what is the work that we are doing it and why are we doing it? And is it really good work? Yeah. It's been excellent so far, and it really has made me just sit down and go, what is the good work that you are doing, Anna? What is it?
That's really cool.
I love it.
You'll have to tell us what you think when you finish.
I will. Yeah. Thank you.
So Morgan, what are you reading?
So I'm actually listening to a book right now. Life has been a little crazy. So I have been listening to, I have it pulled up on my phone. I think you can see it. Yeah. It's called His and Hers by Alice Feeney. And she's an author that I really enjoy. She writes a lot of thrillers, a lot of mysteries, which is right up my alley. And it's one of those fast-paced books that keeps you guessing. And I love when books they switch back and forth between two different perspectives. So His and Hers. So one of them is from a male point of view, male character, and the other one is from a female character. And
I love that.
I know they're connected somehow, but I haven't figured out how yet. So that's been really fun, just as I'm listening, trying to figure out where it's going to go.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And what I love about this point in our show is that we all read wildly different books.
We do.
I love that. Go ahead, Anna.
And we learn from each other. Yeah.
Exactly.
I love that.
So what I'm reading right now is Remarkably Bright Creatures. I don't know the author, and I know I normally have my book in front of me, and I don't. It's on my nightstand at home. But it's a fascinating book. it's for a book club that I've just joined. Actually, I started it, so that's a whole different thing. So it's fascinating in that an animal is a main character, and this animal has his own chapters, including the font is different and the page design is different.
Oh.
And his chapters are really, really short. And we found out why just a couple of pages ago when I was reading, is that it's hard to think and process words as an animal. So I thought that was kind of fun to think about. So Remarkably Bright Creatures, it's definitely not something I would normally read, but it's what my book club picked. So that's what we're doing. And I'm really enjoying it. So we'll see where it goes.
Good.
Yeah.
Wow.
So our time is up. So we will leave you as we always do with be well.
Do good work.
And keep in touch.
Have a great
Until
month.
next month,